Welcome, Tangle friends. I'm Annie, and today I'd like to celebrate fall with you, my favorite time of the year, with a fun little fall project and a new tangle that I'm calling Annieoakie. Play on, obviously, Annieoakie. But this is basically maybe not so much a Zentangle pattern as it is just how to draw a stylized acorn. But I did do a step out for it, and you will find it on my Annie's Botangle Alumni Student Facebook page, both sides, this side and the notes side. So in the meantime, I'll leave it up here while I'm talking so you can screenshot it and draw your own step out with it. I would like to draw it in this little project with a cluster of 3 nuts, and also using our very much like an oak leaf tangle Samson to decorate the cluster with. You can fill it out however you wish. We just did this tangle on my last YouTube tutorial, so I thought I would incorporate that as an inspiration. But today we're going to just draw the black and white version of the cluster and the leaves. Every fall for the past 30 years, the owners and restorers of this castle called Weissenburg, it's actually ruins, they opened their doors to the public to experience a cultural event that this time was readings from 2 books about the topic of the Bosnian War and World War II as seen from the eyes of children. Their theme was called Children Would Not Wage War. And in between, the musician Franz Gerstl played his accordion with compositions of his own written for especially this occasion. This year's readings were not very cheerful, yet so necessary to remind us of exactly what's so relevant today, the horrific tragedy of war and what it does to children, to families, to all who are affected by it. So that's what I'd like to share with you today and my tour of Weissenburg. Be using a white Zentangle tile, the standard size, and a soft graphite pencil. I have a 3B here. any kind of multi-liner. This one is the Staedtler pigment liner or your Sakura pen, 01. This one is a 0.1, and then we will of course need our blending stump, our tortillion, and I have my kneaded eraser in case we need to lift our shading. I like to make just a dot in the center so I have a guide for myself around where to build those little acorns. And we're going to go right to our pen, and our first little acorn is going to be a little ways down, let's say about an inch down. We're going to start our cup. That's the nut. And we're going to put a capsule on it. I like to then extend here and make this just a little bit weighted. Here we're going to add a little doohickey that's actually called the Remains of a Style, botanically speaking, and we're putting it here. Yes, if you've seen my Admirable Acorn tutorial, well, my class on my website, it comes down here. By putting it up here, we're giving us this illusion that the acorn nut is tipping towards us, giving it a little bit of a perspective. Now you can also just put the stem up here, or the stalk it's called, but we're going to cluster, so we'll wait and see if there's even room for that. However, we are going to finish off our capsule with a grid. And I don't want my grid to be too small so that it's really hard to draw. So I'm just going to divide it in half and then go start up here, divide it in half again, and then start making my gridded pattern with ever so slightly bowed lines. And that slight bow helps us believe that this capsule is really rounded. However we fill this in, I'm going to take cubine, which I like for this purpose, and that is pretty easy. You just divide that first square in half and make another little square and color it in. There's our first annieoakie. I'm going to turn my tile and work towards one about here. Don't worry if it overlaps or if it kisses, it'll be good. Overlap is always great. This one's got kind of wonky shaped. That's okay. Okay, so now we're going to just swirl a few leaves around this. What do I usually do? I go, just make my swirls first. 1, 2, and 3. And then we can make some, that would be our midrib for our Samson leaf, and then we can make some veins around which to build our leaf. Remember, this type of oak leaf has rounded edges. There are pin oaks which are pointy. All kinds of oaks. There's number 1. Oops, sorry. And Now, before we go and shade, we can add a little bit of line weight to, especially the Samson, but also like on the cap here, or the capule. I like to make this line a little bit darker. And then I always do kind of like an undercut here. And then on these, the midrib, a little bit more weighted, where the veins join the midrib, I put a little bit of line weight there too. See how much better that looks than that? Such very tiny changes, but so effective. So now we can talk about shading. We're going to view this kind of as a sphere, right? This is almost a sphere, and we want it to look rounded. So we can certainly get that effect by, first of all, putting some graphite under here, because this capule would be sitting a little bit over the top of the nut, casting a little shadow. And then we could also put a little bit of graphite here. And I like to put some here, a little bit on all the edges basically, but leaving that left area in light. And then we'll blend that down or out. And doesn't that already look quite a bit more dimensional? Whenever I lift, if you've watched my tutorials, I always go back and blend. Just to get that nice smooth transition. Now with the cap, there is a tangle shading for Cubine, which you can see in my tutorial. But I'm just going to treat this kind of like a Botangle, in that I'm going to just shade the cap as if it would be on an acorn. And then in here, instead of making a stem, I'm just going to get really, really dark. You could even put dark ink in there. So we're going to do that again. If you would like to learn how to do some color layering with these, you can check out my website for a class, a tutorial, an online tutorial that shows you how to color layer admirable acorns. It's 2 acorns with the contour of the acorn actually just being the string, and then we fill in the whole acorn with different tangles. And important thing is the shading, color layering. So now I want to show you a kind of a really fun trick. If you look at acorn nuts, they are often lined. And if you check out my shading here, you can see that I have a hint of line work in here with my shading. And how I achieved that look is by taking a tiny plastic eraser. I have an even smaller one, so I'm going to be using the edge of this. I can't find my other one. But just draw down with that eraser some lines. Sort of bowing, right? Here we want to bow it a little bit. That really gives that a more realistic look. Then with the Samson, I shade along the midrib and these veins and blend out with a little bit of light on all of the edges. So that is our Tangle project for today. You can, of course, have so much fun filling in the cluster with little things like fescues and damsel and perfs and just other little leaf shapes, or do a background. Floors would look really pretty back here as well. That's something open and lacy. And play around with borders on your tile, whatever tile you're working with. So have fun with that, and do show me your results on my student Facebook page, and we will see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a great week and a lot of fun tangling. I think I like it this way. Don't forget to sign or put your job on, date,